back again to the Gold Village Media Show. I'm your host, Dr. Douglas James Cottrell. My guest today is the lovely Alejandra Brady, author of You Just Can't Make This Shit Up. And I suspect you have a couple of other books in irons in the fire, as they say, and other writings. But as a master feng shui consultant, someone who is able to perceive the invisible made visible, and those things in the heavenly dimensions above. Our audience is quite interested in people who are able to demonstrate spiritual abilities and gifts. So as you move forward in writing your book, when you got to the close of the book, how did you feel about that?
At the end?
Yeah, when you finished it and you looked at it and you thought, now I have to go promote it, I have to talk about it. Was it
Mixed,
scary or was it
very
exhilarating?
scary.
Okay.
Very, very scary. Yes, because it really is me. It's not sugar coated. I didn't let
Sure.
anybody except my editors read it before it published because I didn't want any noise. I didn't want my husband or our son or our daughter-in-law to read it because I didn't I didn't want anyone to feel like maybe I shouldn't have put that in there, and I just wanted it to be from me. So literally me and my editors, and that's it. That's all. Those are the only people that read it before it published. So it was a surprise to everyone. And I'm glad I did it that way. I feel good about the fact that I did it that way because I think there would have been too many voices and too many reasons why I shouldn't include this or I shouldn't include that. And, I've had people tell me, how can you say this about your friend? What do you mean it was toxic? I see you guys together all the time. I'm like, at that point in time, it was toxic. So that is what I wrote.
Right.
We have since worked through it and we're in a great place, stronger than ever. But I had to be honest as to how things were unfolding at that point in time. So yes, it was very, very scary to put it out there, to be
Wow.
brutally honest.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm an author. I got some of my books facing here, and so it's yeah, um, when you're naked in front of everybody, there it
Mm-hmm.
is, and to
Mm-hmm.
have your let's say unconnected, disconnected colleagues go through the book, they would see it in a different light. But uh, you have my acknowledgement of how courageous that would the amount of courage it took to get it out there. So for anybody who wants a straightforward, truthful look at this lady's life and how she developed herself into being an author, a spiritual master, and becoming more and more aware of the spiritual world, this is the book for you. I can't make this shit up. So you can't forget that title. And again, it's AlejandraBrady.com. So as we go through life, we have different interests in our life. And I mentioned before the show that I had been to San Jose, California at the Rosicrucian Museum, which was the largest museum outside of Egypt with Egyptian artifacts from antiquity, mummies, statues, obelisks. The Rosicrucian Amorc is the name of the organization. It's their park, and it's an amazing place. An amazing place. I was there with Brenda Carlin, George Carlin, the comedian's wife.
Mm-hmm.
She took a bunch of us up in a limousine because I happened to mention always wanted to go to this place. And she said, well, let's go. And so we went from Brentwood, got in a limo, and up we went one day to San Jose.
How
But
fabulous.
we bought coffee and donuts at McDonald's in a limousine. Now,
Why not?
that's another story. Everybody was taking our picture. They thought we were a rock band or something. But anyway, so when we talked about that, you've always found, I guess, a past life reverence or connection, a past life connection with ancient Egypt. Tell me about that.
Oh, I have quite the past life in Egypt. So, as part of my journey, I went to some people who did Akashic records and who did past life regressions. And I was in the middle of an Akashic record session. And again, asking the question, who was I, right? In a previous lifetime, like who was I? Because you have to come in with a list, at least for this practitioner, you had to bring in a list of questions. And then they would ask spirit during the session. and then Spirit would give the answer. And when I asked if I could know, one or two significant people, if any significant, or just people who I had been in previous lifetimes, the answer will surprise you. I was told that I was King Tutankhamen. So I
Wow.
burst out laughing. And I was laying on a table, and she got my head and pushed me down with my third eye, like she put her finger on my third eye and literally pushed me into the ground, into the table. And she said, "Stop that." She goes, "When you ask Spirit a question and they answer, you do not laugh. It is incredibly disrespectful."
Well,
And I'm just like, "But that's
I,
absurd." And she goes, "You asked a question. They gave you an answer. Like, stop it." Like, she was mad. And I'm like, "I am so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It seems like a ridiculous answer to me." So I left. She told me to go up. I was actually in Sedona for this. She told me to go up and go to this mountain and just kind of decompress on this little path that I knew very well, and this trail that I knew very well. And as I was walking down from that trail, a man came up to me and handed me a carved heart. And I said, "I don't have any money," because I didn't. I had just had my car keys with me. Because "I don't want money. This is just a gift for you to remind you of who you are." And it was a carved heart. So I get back to our home. I just start looking up King Tut, and referencing him and everything else. Well, I come to read that he had scoliosis, which is what I had as a child. I got put into a back brace at the age of 11, and I had that my entire adult
wow.
life.
That's
Uh,
something. Wow. We should have talked
yep.
about that
How
earlier. Oh
about
my
that for a
gosh.
connection? And this is after, surgery here for this one. This is a witch wound from when I was hung as a sorceress in medieval England. I'm very, very, very old. I've been told this is my last go around, so we'll see. Um, but we'll stay on track with Tut because it's really cool. And I
Yeah, it
get
is.
home and I start reading, and, a lot of things lined up. And then he was found without his heart. And this man gave me the heart as I was walking down the mountain. And I'm like, "Okay, all right." I still really had a hard time believing it, but I wrote it down as I was instructed to, right? Just write down what happens to you and don't try and sort it out. Just write it down. Fast forward within the next year, multiple other healers that I worked with in different locations. So it's not like everyone around the world is going, "Hey, if this girl calls you up for a session, tell her this," right? I mean, that's just not possible. So different states, different locations. I got told the same thing. So that's 3 people now who've said that I was Tutankhamen. I have an opportunity to finally, I've been obsessed with Egypt since I was a kid, by the way, too. My dad had the entire Encyclopedia Britannica, and I used to read everything about Egypt, not about Tut, just about Egypt in general. And so I didn't know much about him other than he was a boy king. I knew that much. But I had an opportunity to go to Egypt in March of this year. So my husband and I went, and it was life changing. We are walking through the Cairo Museum, and I was not expecting this. First of all, we're still jet lagged. We landed like a day and a half before, but we walk into the Tutankhamen exhibit. So the first thing I see is his face mask, and that didn't do much to me. Then the gold sarcophagus, again, that didn't do much to me. But then suddenly you start seeing, and I'm getting goosebumps all over, you started seeing his things that belong to him, like the gold cuffs and the jewelry and the headpieces and all of that. And I just had this, I burst out crying, like out loud, ugly cry, mascara's running down my face, like
Oh
no
gosh.
holds barred. I could not stop it. I was having an insanely visceral reaction to seeing his things, because I remember seeing them, like I was looking down and basically like seeing them on my wrists. It was crazy. And so my husband was right in front of me. This woman who was part of our tour, but who I had not really met, we had just said, "Hi, I'm whatever, I'm whatever." And she was right behind me. And I'm sure you could see my shoulders, just heaving, and I'm crying, and I'm just having this horrendous moment in my mind. I'm so embarrassed, and I have nothing to wipe my tears away with or anything else. And she taps me on my left shoulder and she goes, "Honey, are you okay?" And something made me tell her, I go, "I was told, in between sobbing, that I was him. And it's just very overwhelming. And I feel like I was him." And she gave me the look that anytime, I say that out loud to anybody, they all give me the same look. "Oh, poor thing. She's a little delusional. So sad. It's so sad." A little pat on the head, like,
It's
"It's
the
going to be
medication. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that medication working out for you?"
Exactly.
So, She just gave me that look, and I turned back around, and we're working our way through the exhibit. About 5 minutes later, we're still in there. She taps me on the shoulder again. And I just turn around and go, I'm okay. I really am. And she goes, no, honey, I have to tell you something. And I said, okay. And she goes, I live in Dubai. She was American, but she lives in Dubai. I am a very high level energy healer. And I have now scanned you 3 times because I thought you were crazy. And I'm like, yeah, par for the course. And she goes, and you are telling me the truth. I am getting a 100% confirmation that you absolutely were King Tutankhamen, and I'm getting it right now, right here in front of all of his stuff. So talk about a gift from spirit that I'm getting confirmation while I'm standing in the middle of this exhibit with this stranger, who's validating what I've been told by all these other people, what I've had the balls, I guess, to say out loud, expecting everyone to think I'm crazy and laugh at me. And she's like, nope, nope, you were him. You were
Well,
him.
I would not pay attention too much to what she said. I'm more impressed of what happened to you when you could sort of in an invisible, sort of translucent way see the property
On
that you,
me.
yeah, that your old property, you could
Mm-hmm.
sort of on you. That impresses me.
Yeah, it's the only experience I've ever had like that. Where it just seemed like what I was looking at, I could picture it on my body. It was so unexpected. It was so visceral. If I'd been in there by myself, like you were saying that you were getting dizzy, I think I would have been in a fetal position on the floor. I had no option. I had to keep moving because the place was packed. And, it's like a, file. It's just a line, one person after another going through there. So I had no option but to keep moving forward. But I didn't know how I was going to make it through the whole thing because it was just insanely overwhelming to me. But at the very end of the trip, we were there for almost 2 weeks, and we got to go into the sarcophagus inside the king's chamber on a private visit, and I got to lay inside the sarcophagus.
Wow.
And everybody who was on our trip said, they felt like they were rocking or they had memories from childhood. And again, I heard one thing and one thing only, and it was a male voice. I don't know if it was Archangel Michael. I didn't ask who it was, but all I heard was, you're now complete.
Wow.
That was it. That was it. And since then, since getting back, I've been dealing with some health issues since I turned 50, gut and not being able to tolerate gluten or dairy. And from talking to other healers, I think that happens to a lot of healers. We just become a lot less tolerant to any toxins in our body at all. What used to be that I could have 2 drinks. If I have half a drink now, I feel just as drunk as 2 drinks used to be. Like my body just doesn't want stuff in it anymore. But since we came back from Egypt, I have been able to tolerate foods that I could not tolerate before. And the only thing that changed was going to Egypt.
Well, more than just the trip changed.
Right, right. I think I really am complete now.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, all
So,
my soul fragments are back, everything's back, and it's just 100% me now.
yeah, sounds like it makes perfect sense to me. And
Good.
just because you were a famous person in one life doesn't mean you're going to be at the same political whatever strata in the next life. I find people, giants become midgets, strong people become frail people. We tend to go through the extremes, so it's good for our soul. But being somewhat famous as an ancient Egyptian pharaoh, uh, and being now a famous author, uh, again, if you look at the opposites, there you were, you had everything. This year, this life, you came in, and at 5 days, you had nothing. Everything was set aside. But
Mm-hmm.
again, in the course of the spiritual path, everything balances out. It's been fascinating talking to you. You've had an amazing life. Uh, I can encourage you by saying many authors and people, including myself, have had similar events in our lives to get us onto the spiritual path, including the one of being called a uh, worshiper of the dark forces. The first time that happened to me on radio, somebody was going on about the Bible, Deuteronomy, whatever, and Ron Knight it was in a place north of Toronto, was furious. I said, hold on, he's doing me the greatest honor and he doesn't know it. This is exactly what they did to the Christ, calling him the prince of the demons, because as you may recall the story, he chased out all these demons from that poor man called legions.
Oh, that's right.
Anybody that does that, says that to you, just smile, because they don't know. Pity them if you will. But it's part of the suffering of being on the spiritual path. You have paid your dues. All these things that have happened to you, I would say you were on the hurry up to become spiritually aware, spiritually advanced because of all the hardships. That's my measure. That's my rule of thumb. You can't be a spiritual master and not have hardship. If you haven't had any hardship in your life and you're presenting yourself as a spiritual master, you got it wrong. But if you've had all these experiences, again, my opinion, then that gives you the credentials to be who you are. So with that, I wish you very best, Alejandra Brady, AlejandraBrady.com. The book is I Just Can't Make This Shit Up. And it's everywhere. So I encourage everybody to go out there and get it. So with that, any last word for our audience? Any words of wisdom?
I just want people to, if you're really serious about this, ask, just truly ask what your purpose is. And that's your jumping off point. And then just follow those signs because they're there for a reason.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Hey,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Oh, it's wonderful. You've been a delight, really. Hey, everybody. You've been listening to the Global Village Media show with Dr. Douglas James Cottrell, my lovely guest today, Alejandra Brady. Remember, the life doesn't stop today. The journey continues tomorrow. So wherever you are in the world, there is always hope. Seek peace and prosperity and believe you're important. Until next time, God bless, peace and prosperity to you.